Good afternoon. The business meeting of the Montana Public Service Commission is called to order. For the record, the time is 1:30 p.m. The date is October 28th, 2025. The commission and its staff are appearing from Helena, Montana in the Bollinger Room of the Montana Public Service Commission. I am Jennifer Fielder. I am the presiding chairman for this meeting. Would our colleagues and staff and guests please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. For the record, we have four commissioners present, and I think Commissioner Molnar will be back. We have with us Commissioner Pinocci, myself, Commissioner Fielder, Commissioner Wellborn, and Commissioner Bukacek. A quorum is present with 4 members. President Molnar is excused. The Public Service Commission welcomes any comment on any item that is on today's agenda or any matter that is within the jurisdiction of the Montana PSC. Are there any public commenters in the room today? Are there any public commenters in the room? Seeing none, are there any public commenters online? Lily Beck, can you hear us?
Yes, hello.
Hello, please state your name for the record and your spelling of your last name and the town you live in, and then you may proceed with your comments.
Yes, my name is Lily Beck, and I'm from Bozeman, Montana. My last name is spelled B-E-C-K.
Thank you.
All right. Good afternoon, commissioners. I am here today to comment on Northwestern Energy's proposed partnership with Quantica to develop and power a new AI data center in the Yellowstone area. Northwestern Energy is the primary energy provider for Montana's residents, and to my knowledge, the only provider option in Bozeman. The company is pledged to provide the project with 500 megawatts of power, expanding to 1 gigawatt by 2030. That pledge would double Northwestern Energy's current output. And this issue regards the first of AI data centers to be built in Montana. It's likely not going to be the last data center built here. Residents like myself have concerns that the cost of developing and powering this project could be passed on to ratepayers. The project demonstrates a need to revisit and modernize Montana's public utility policies. So with this, I encourage the commission to take action in the interest of protecting Montana's residents from subsidization and utility price increases. I ask that you consider recommending legislative updates to better protect the ratepayers from cross-subsidization as we navigate this new era of high demand energy consumers. Similar code already exists in regards to telecommunication companies, but not yet for energy providers. Additionally, I believe it would be important to require demonstration on behalf of these data centers to present compelling evidence that their consumption of both energy and natural resources will not negatively impact other consumers on the same utility provider. This issue involves many different stakeholders, and with the commission's close proximity to the issue, I believe you guys could play a powerful role in initiating this kind of action. Thank you for your time and your ongoing work for the interest of Montana residents and businesses.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any other commenters online? Seeing none, we will move on with the agenda for today, the order of the business. Next item is announcements. And as acting president, I do have some announcements to read into the record. The first one, actually the first two, in accordance with IPM Administration Policy Section 2.11, I appoint Commissioner Pinocci to serve on Southwest Power Pool. Last week, then President Molnar appointed himself and Commissioner Pinocci and has since informed us that only one commissioner can serve, and he would like it to be Commissioner Pinocci. We can also designate one staff person for that, and I will leave that discussion for our executive director. The second appointment is in accordance with IPM Administration Policy Section 2.11. I appoint Commissioner Bukacek as the commission lead for the current Montana roll-off litigation matter. Over the last 3 years, Commissioner Bukacek has dedicated considerable effort to PCN cases and demonstrated a sound knowledge of the applicable laws, rules, and legal doctrine in these matters. It's important that a qualified person represent commission interests here, as the implications of this case could result in binding precedent that extends to all districts statewide. Commissioner Bukacek has agreed to the appointment. Number 3, in accordance with IPM Screening and Selection Policy 2.6.4.3, I appoint Executive Director Alana Lake as the chair of the External Affairs Coordinator Screening and Selection Committee. This recommendation comes on the advice of the previously appointed chair, Tina Limousin, who requested to be excused from the External Affairs Hiring Committee and pointed out that the chairmanship is better suited for the executive director because it is that position who oversees the External Affairs Coordinator position and external affairs in general for the agency. Next, delegation of commission officer duties under IPM Administration Policy 2.9.3.5.1 to ensure continuous and responsible coverage in the event a commission officer is unavailable, meaning not accessible, not eligible, or otherwise unable to perform a necessary duty within a reasonable time frame. I delegate the duty in accordance with the following succession plan. In the event the president is unavailable, the duty of president is delegated to the vice president. This is the existing standard practice and protocol within the Department of Public Service Regulation. Number 2, if the vice president is unavailable, the duty of vice president is delegated to Commissioner Bukacek. Number 3, if Commissioner Bukacek is unavailable, the duty is delegated to Commissioner Wellborn. Number 4, if Commissioner Wellborn is unavailable, the duty is delegated to the executive director. And 5, if none of the above are available or if they decline to accept the duty may be delegated to a responsible individual at the discretion of the agency coordinating team. Of course, this delegation plan does not grant authority for a staff member to take the place of a commissioner at any commission business meeting or work session. This plan is intended to apply specifically to just the commission officer duties. Thank you. And if you have any questions, please let me know. And would my colleagues please pass this to the secretary for the record? Thank you. All right. With that said, we are now ready to move into action items. And commissioners, today, the first order of business, the first action item is commission organization. And that is to select the PSC president pursuant to Montana Administrative Rule 38.1.101. We have a current vacancy in the office of president. And so what we're going to do today, I've reviewed Robert's rules on nominations and elections. And unless there's objections, here's how I plan to do this section. First of all, we will ask for names to be placed into nomination. And then we will close nominations. Then those who made nominations or wish to second a nomination may speak in favor of the candidate that they've put forward. And I just remind everyone that under the Roberts Rules nomination process, the speech should be directed towards supporting your candidate, not towards opposing another candidate. And the candidates themselves, if there should be more than one, will have an opportunity, or even if there's not more than one, any nominated candidates will have an opportunity to also say a few words. I would ask the speeches to be confined to about 2 minutes or so if we can. Unless there's objections, we'll stick with 2 minutes for our plan today. And then we will vote on our our choice for president and fill that role. So with that, are there any questions on the process before we start and open for nominations? Commissioner Molnar.
Thank you, Vice President. I'm not sure that this would be within Robert's rules, but I've done a pass out as to I do not intend to attempt to stop this all the things in God's green earth I don't want to be right now as president. But I do believe that the plain wording of what we're relying on here is challenged by statutory construction. Would it be okay if I address that, or is that not within your interpretation of Robert's Rules of Order?
No, Mr. President, we are simply going to open nominations and have a procedure for nominating our president today.
Okay, then I reserve the right to bring this up at a later time.
You might want to put it in a memo or something to us.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. All right. So are there any other questions about the process? So we'll open nominations, we will accept nominations, then we will close nominations, and then we will go to some speeches and then a vote. With that said, the nominations for the office of Public Service Commission President are open. Are there any nominations? I will go ahead and take advantage of the opportunity to nominate a colleague here. I will just place into nomination the name of Jeff Wellborn for president. Is there a second for that?
I second.
Okay, Commissioner Wellborn's name has been placed into nomination and seconded. Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Calling a third time, are there any other nominations? Okay, hearing none, the nominations are closed, and we will give the nominator, the seconder, and the nominee a brief opportunity to say a few words. So since I made the nomination, I will start. Commissioner Wellborn and I served together in the Senate, and many times we were not aligned on policy positions, including issues which were of highest importance to me. But he was always well-reasoned, respectful, and never, ever vindictive. I never saw him lose his temper. I never saw him speak ill of anybody. As a commissioner this year, I have observed Commissioner Wellborn being a very good listener. He listens, he learns, he asks questions, he hears all sides. And when he's been acting as a chairman, he has graciously allowed others to do the same without interruption. He's been very respectful in his role as a chairman. And I know that he developed strong chairmanship skills in the legislature as well. My observations of Commissioner Wellborn is that he's been able to work respectfully with others, whether he agrees with them or not. We've never seen him force his opinion upon others or try to coerce anyone into supporting his position. And he hasn't spoke ill of people that disagree with his position. He has demonstrated the wisdom and integrity to recognize and avoid impropriety, both publicly and privately. I commend him for that. He treats his colleagues, our staff, the parties that come before the commission, all with fairness. And I've observed him reaching well-reasoned, unbiased conclusions based on his objective analysis of the facts. It's my humble belief and hope that he will be respectful of the boundaries set by the applicable laws, rules, and policies of the department, be fair to all commissioners and staff and the regulated parties as well as the public, and allow everyone here to do their jobs to their absolute best. I think that Commissioner Wellborn is the positive change that we need, and I hope that he will set a very positive tone from the top that's commensurate with the respect and the dignity that this organization deserves. Commissioner Bukacek, you seconded the nomination.
I appreciate the opportunity to speak. At last week's business meeting, I spoke of time-tested duties of the president, a description of the duties written in our policy manual that are similar and other sources such as Robert's Rules. Commissioner Wellborn's innate tendency toward respect for individual dignity and capacity to actively listen, as you spoke about, Vice President, plus his genuine concern for the work of the PSC, make him a natural for this position. To reiterate the three main categories of duties of the president: one, lead, moderate, and otherwise facilitate business meetings. And to do this effectively, the president needs to work with staff and other commissioners to develop agendas and set priorities, needs to promote a positive environment with civil decorum that promotes dignity and open debate. Again, he's a natural. The second category, promote productive work relationship with other commissioners, staff, the public, and representatives of the utilities we regulate. Jeffrey, a natural. Number three, represent the PSC agency. The president is to act as a spokesman for the organization, representing the views of the agency as he or she acts on behalf of all of us. Advocate, promote the vision, mission, and objectives of the PSC, which includes balancing the need of utilities and their customers, being a model of good governance, and being a great place to work. And in that same category of representing us, he exemplifies impartiality, lack of bias, and neutrality in all proceedings. Commissioner Wellborn chaired many committees during his 16 years in the legislature. We witnessed him chair one arduous 3-hour meeting with unwaning dignity, patience, wisdom, and civility. He has the temperament, character, and life experience well suited for the role of president. For the good of the order of the Public Service Commission and the public we serve, I support Vice President Fielder's nomination of Jeffrey Wellborn as PSC president.
Thank you, Commissioner Bukacek. Would the nominee like to say a few words? Commissioner Wellborn.
Thank you, Madam. Excuse me. Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I'll start out by saying this is honestly something that I wasn't anticipating so long ago, but since we are where we find ourselves, I guess I would just like to say a couple of things that I guess thought processes, if you will, that I subscribe to. Number one, respect is a two-way street, and so is communication. And I do believe that the only way any organization can move forward is to keep both of those lines open in both directions. It's perfectly fine to disagree with somebody, but I would always try to promote an environment that you can disagree without being disagreeable. And I think there is a difference. Other than that, I guess, yeah, again, something I wasn't really anticipating, but if it's the will of the majority, it's something that I will accept the challenge and do my best to move this agency forward in a manner that works for all Montanans. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Wellborn. We will now close the speeches and go to a vote. All in favor of electing or selecting Commissioner Wellborn as the Montana Public Service Commission president, say aye.
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 And all opposed, say nay. No, sir, I'm sorry. Debate is closed, and so
This isn't debate.
It's a yes or no vote.
This isn't debate.
Its discussion is closed. It's a yes or no vote under Robert's rules, just keeping with that.
Well, maybe Robert should speak for himself. In the meantime,
Mr. Molnar,
in the meantime,
Maybe
I will
yes
finish my
or-
sentence.
yes or no? There's just no discussion. It's a yes or no vote.
It was going to be a yes, but I'm thinking no.
All right. We have 3 votes yes. We have 2 votes no. Commissioner Wellborn is the president. Thank you and congratulations, Commissioner Wellborn.
Thank you so much for accepting it.
As a reminder, the Chair has been reviewing Robert's Rules of Order. There's been a number of instances where Once a commissioner has voted, another commissioner decides they want to discuss something that is out of bounds and not permitted. Once a commissioner has voted, the discussion is over. Okay, so the time for discussion is before the votes are cast. All right, with that, Commissioner Wellborn, would you like to take the chair or would you like me to continue chairing for the meeting?
You're fine. Just
Okay, I will continue chairing for the meeting then. Thank you. All right, we will move to action item number 2, approval of commission minutes for the week of October 20th, 2025. Is there a motion? Is there a motion to approve the commission minutes for the week of October 20th, 2025?
I so move.
Commissioner Wellborn has moved the approval of the minutes for the week of October 20th, 2025. Is there a second?
I second.
Commissioner Bukacek has seconded the motion. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor of the minutes as written, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. The motion passes and the minutes are approved 5-0. Okay, work session number 1. This is docket number 2020.09.094, North Star Development LLC, investigation of the rules, practices, and services of North Star Development LLC and the adequacy of service to discuss settlement negotiations and substitute attorney appointed. Ms. Vakowski.
Yes. Good afternoon, Vice President Fielder, Commissioners. For the record, my name is Laura Vahowski, and I am a staff attorney here with the Montana Public Service Commission. At the table here with me today are Commission Rate Analyst Grant Fink and Commission Staff Attorney Teresa Omens. As you all may recall, on August 15th, 2025, the Commission issued Order 7744G in docket number 2020.09.094. That docket deals with the Commission's investigation of North Star Development LLC, which provides water and wastewater services near Helena, Montana. In Order 7744G, the Commission established preliminary penalty amounts totaling $86,700 against North Star for its failure to cooperate with the Commission and its failure to provide reasonably adequate service. As you may also recall, in Order 7744G, the Commission directed North Star to either appear before the Commission for a formal hearing regarding the preliminary penalty amounts established in Order 7744G, or request to engage in settlement discussions with Commission staff to negotiate stipulated penalties and or other non-monetary means to account for its failure to cooperate with the Commission and its failure to provide reasonably adequate service. In response to Order 7744G, North Star elected to engage in settlement discussions with staff. As a result of that election, on August 22nd, 2025, the Commission ordered Grant and myself to engage in settlement discussions with North Star for not more than 60 days, with a 60-day period to begin on August 25th, 2025. The 60-day negotiating period expired yesterday. Grant and I have been negotiating with North Star on a regular basis since August 25th, 2025, and we feel notable progress has been made with the negotiations, with both sides agreeing on a number of important issues. There still remain, however, a few matters to iron out. So staff would like permission from the Commission to extend the negotiating period for another 30 days. At this point, staff is optimistic that an additional 30 days to negotiate will result in a settlement agreement that ultimately can be presented to the Commission for consideration. Now, as you all know, this is my last week with the Montana Public Service Commission. Staff would therefore like to recommend that in the event the Commission does decide to authorize staff to continue negotiations with North Star, that Staff Attorney Teresa Omens take my place on the negotiating team. So to just briefly sum things up, staff would request that the Commission do 2 things here today. First, authorize staff to continue negotiating with North Star for an additional 30 days for the purpose of negotiating stipulated penalties and or other non-monetary means to account for North Star's failure to cooperate with the Commission and its failure to provide reasonably adequate service. And secondly, substitute Teresa Omens for me, Laura Vahowski, as the Commission staff attorney authorized to participate in the negotiations. And with that, if you have any questions about staff's request, Grant, Teresa, and I would be happy to try and answer them.
Thank you, Ms. Vahalsi. Are there any questions or comments of staff from commissioners at this point? Seeing none, I think we'll take this up in two motions. So do I hear a motion to substitute Teresa Umans for Laura Fahalsi as the staff attorney authorized to engage in settlement discussions with North Star on behalf of the agency?
I so move.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? Okay. The motion is to substitute Teresa Umans for Laura Fahalski as staff attorney authorized to engage in settlement discussions with North Star on behalf of the agency. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries 5-0. Okay. Thank you, commissioners. The next item would be a motion to extend the time for settlement discussion between North Star and the agency for another 30 days. Is there a motion? Commissioner Bukacek?
I move to extend the time for settlement discussion between North Star and the agency for another 30 days.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on that motion? I have one, I guess. Should have brought this up earlier, but are the residents informed of what's going on during this time, or is this just a closed discussion process with North Star?
Yes, Vice President Fielder, Commissioners, it is a closed process at this point.
All right. Any other discussion on the motion to extend the negotiations for another 30 days? I assume that 30 days starts today, so we'd go 30 days from this date. Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. That concludes the North Star docket for this morning.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Bukacek?
at some point I'd like to thank Laura Wachowski. She looks like she might be leaving the room. Does that wait till the end?
During announcements, Commissioner Bukacek? All right. We are moving on to work session number 2. This is docket number 202409090 Northwestern Energy Annual PCAM filing to consider a draft final order approving Northwestern's 2024 PCAM. Mr. Fink.
Good afternoon, Vice President Fielder and Commissioners. As you mentioned, this is docket 2024.09.090, Northwestern Energy's Power Cost and Credits Adjustment Mechanism filing, also known as the PCAM. On August 29th, 2024, Northwestern Energy filed its application with the Commission requesting approval of a rate adjustment under Northwestern's PCAM mechanism. In your packet materials is a draft final order, which was originally sent to you on September 16th, 2024, and again last week. The PCAM mechanism tracks Northwestern's power supply costs and credits, including wholesale market energy purchases and sales, capacity purchases, and purchases from qualifying facilities. Northwestern also recovers demand-side management revenues and commission and Montana consumer taxes. The tracking period for this application runs from July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024. On October 1st, 2024, Northwestern's requested annual rate adjustment automatically became effective on an interim basis, which resulted in a decrease of $6.13 or 5.57% in the monthly bill of an average residential customer using 750 kilowatt hours per month. On October 15th, 2024, the Montana Consumer Council intervened in this docket. On March 11th, 2025, the Commission issued a Notice of Additional Issues. The schedule stated, among other things, that Northwestern would file additional issues testimony by May 20th, 2025, and the Montana Consumer Council would file additional issues testimony or request additional process by July 1st, 2025. Specifically, the commission required additional testimony and evidence that, one, addressed fully and in detail the circumstances that led to the decision to take Colstrip Unit 4 offline during the period leading up to and including the extreme cold weather event in mid-January 2024. And two, addressed whether that decision was prudent and consistent with utility industry best practices and Northwestern's obligation to provide adequate and reliable services at just and reasonable rates. On May 20th, 2025, Northwestern filed that additional issues testimony. MCC did not file any additional testimony thereafter. Staff finds that Northwestern's actions and decisions to repair the tube leaks were prudent. Staff recommends approval of the final draft order in front of you, which approves Northwestern's application on a final basis. With me today is Staff Attorney Teresa Umans and Rate Analyst Neil Templeton, and we are available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fink. Are there any questions of the staff from the commissioners? Commissioner Molnar.
Thank you. With your permission, this is going to be a kind of a running thing. I'm going to go through this, which was given to us several months ago by Northwestern. I have maybe 8 or 9 pages worth of things, and it's like maybe one sentence per. I'm not quite sure. Do I ask you, like, you're at a hearing representing Northwestern? It says in here, the commission finds this to be right. I don't know where that came from. How would you like to handle this? Should I just go through it? Or would somebody like to answer each one as I bring them up?
The commissioner will direct the comments through the chair, and the staff can answer any questions about the draft order that we have before us. So they have prepared the draft order. So if you have questions about how they arrived at these recommendations or this draft, then that's perfectly fine.
Yeah, it's my understanding that the draft order came from what Northwestern gave. So I'm going to go through what Northwestern gave. I guess that concerns how the answers came up. And we'll check the validity of the answers if that's okay.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Molnar, for the record, this is Neil Templeton. I'm a rate analyst for the Montana Public Service Commission. I would say beforehand, and I'm willing to parlay with you on it, but I'm not authorized to speak for Northwestern. There was no hearing. There was no opportunity for cross-examination. So, I mean, other than what we would receive otherwise, we really have no information as to Northwestern's position outside of discovery and the testimony that they filed. But I'm more than willing to give my opinion on the matter.
Well, Madam Chair, staff here gathered, it's my understanding from other discussions that the document you bring before us today as an acceptance is there because I objected, and I objected because of this. That's been my understanding that the document filed by Northwestern is where the staff got its findings. So I found it appropriate to, I guess, just ask, how did you interpret this to come up with your findings? Is everybody comfortable with that?
Are you, Madam Chair, Commissioner Molnar, are you asking that as a question? Are we comfortable with you asking us questions?
Your comfort is paramount with mine. Are you comfortable with that as a method to go forward with this discussion?
Just for clarification, Commissioner, I think where we're at is that the commission asked for additional information on this matter. And so we received additional information. So we've got the testimony that was provided, and are you attempting now to go through the testimony with the staff? Is that
Yes.
what you're trying to do? Okay. Just so we all understand.
Okay.
You may
So
proceed.
whoever feels confident that you know the answer, that however you want to respond, I don't know, it's fine. Let me tell you, it's just as fine. So this would go to MJB 5, page MJB 5, lines 2 and 3. Who makes these decisions on the repair of this kind in this instance? Was it Talon? The owners? Northwestern customers? Who is actually making this decision on behalf of Northwestern customers?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Molnar. Now, my understanding may be imperfect, and I'm not privy to their actual operational decision-making process, but it's my understanding that Talon is the operator and day-to-day operations, they're in control. Now, the owners each most likely, say Barnes is the owner's representative for Northwestern, and I believe the ownership agreement. And so I'm sure that he is kept privy of all the kind of the day-to-day operational information that comes from the plants. For instance, they are at all times monitoring the various characteristics of operation of the plant. And if it's running smoothly, then probably, I would guess, Talon is in control and they monitor it and ensure that the plant continues to run smoothly. Now, if there is, say, some discrepancy in the readings they're getting from the various instruments that they use to monitor the plant, as in this case, when during a walkthrough at the end of shift, one of the personnel who's in charge of actually operating the plant noticed that there appeared to be some leaks, and that began in November, I believe. And
Madam Chair,
then they would apprise the rest of the owners, including Mike Barnes for Northwestern.
Madam Chair, Mr. Templeton, we're going to get into that in a little bit.
But
right now, I'm just interested in who made the final decision.
It's my understanding, according to Mr. Barnes' testimony, that all of the owners agreed that they should shut it down beginning December 7th.
Thank you. Same page, MJB 5, lines 18 and 19. As you go beyond that, but particularly on this page, they're waiting for comment between the owners. Some of those waited entire weekends during a rapidly deteriorating situation. Was waiting for comment so many times actually part of the problem hitting critical mass and causing the shutdown during a time during which there were far more complications?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Molnar. It's my understanding that on January 5th, 2024, Talon sent an email to all plant owners recommending scheduling the outage.
That's right. At the beginning, they were sharing comments before they reached that. Was the wait of almost 6-7 weeks part of reaching critical mass during a very poor time to reach any kind of critical mass because it was 24 below zero?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Molnar, I don't know if I can specifically address the merits to your question. However, I don't know what kind of comments those entailed, but shutting the plant down too early had consequences, as so did extending the shutdown also had consequences.
Correct. My question was, in the final analysis, was the time used, the 6 weeks in review of protocol, the problem that created the shutdown during a 24 below event that lasted 5 days? In other words, if they had used less time discussing it and more time making the decision, would that have been a better outcome than waiting over weekends to before they started gathering comment?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Molnar, I don't I'm not sure where in his testimony it states that they were waiting on the other parties to comment on it before they actually took action. My understanding is they're waiting from the initial period, beginning in November, had more to do with kind of standard SOP apparently in this industry, which is the leaks were very small when they were first noticed in November. So they noticed them apparently by audio. They heard them. They could hear perhaps the whistling or
Ma-
the steam.
Madam Chair, Mr. Templeton, we'll get into that in a minute. But right now the question is, from what is in here, which includes MJB 5, when practical in time for members to comment before decisions are made. Later on, it goes into waiting an entire weekend, etc. Did that play a part in the final outcome of the event?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Molnar, I can't speak to that because I'm not privy to that information. I don't know. We do have an asymmetry of information. We're getting this story as it was told by Mike Barnes. I don't believe that he said one way or the other whether any delay in communication from the other parties, the other owners, was a factor in their decision. My understanding of his testimony, my interpretation was that they delayed at first because there was some uncertainty as to whether they shut the plant down, if they shut the plant down and did a walkthrough or a hot walkthrough, or even a more comprehensive shutdown where they install scaffolding and the lift process, the lift arrangements to lift human beings and ferry them around the boiler, that there's an expense incurred by that, and they were not certain of finding the leaks because they were still so small.
Thank you.
That was my understanding,
Thank
not
you.
a delay on the parties.
Thank you. MJB 17, it talks about on lines 4 and 5 that an overhaul occurs at each unit every 3 or 4 years. Would you happen to know in this particular case, was it 3 years or 4 years? And if it was 4 years, was it the beginning of the 4th year or the end of the 4th year?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Molnar, I did look into this earlier. I believe it was the spring of 2020. Typically, Northwestern shuts, or the owners and Talon shut the plant down for its 4-year maintenance or 3-year maintenance in the spring when the hydro production is high and the demand is low and the cost of power is low. And I believe it was the spring of 2020. And I don't know that Northwestern has testified to that. I was looking at the records of production from Coal Strip, and they seem to be down in the spring of 2020 significantly. So that would be 4 years from the spring of 2020 to the spring of 2024 when it was scheduled for maintenance.
Thank you. L11, same page. If non-overhaul tube repairs are so common, and apparently they are, why not on this time frame with this need? In other words, to go in and fix just the tubes as opposed to waiting for an overhaul is something that they commonly do. But in this case, they uncommonly didn't. Do we know why?
Could you restate the line of which you're see?
Okay, that would be, sorry, I skipped it. MJB 18, line 11.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Molnar, from the testimony, it's not my understanding that the operator of Colstrip goes in and fixes tube leak repairs often, according to this testimony. When a tube leak appears, when they first notice it, they monitor it through their daily walkdowns. And if they suspect it getting bigger, like in this case, they'll communicate that. And then, as Neil Templeton mentioned, they could go through a hot walk down or a permanent shutdown. But if that tube leak becomes a pea size or even a dime size, then they will not be able to regulate the thermal temperature inside the boiler.
Just for guidance, if I can give any guidance, Madam Chair, the question is, all questions seem to be getting answered by a narrative around other things. The question is, if non-overhaul tube repairs are common, and apparently they are, why were they not done at this time? In other words, if all prior practice would indicate that a leak is serious, they go in and they repair it, they don't attempt to wait for months before they get into it, and that led to the catastrophic outcome. Why in this case did they not? Do we have any evidence from anybody or testimony from anybody from Northwestern as to the prudency of that decision?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Molnar. On the paragraph before that, it says tubes are only inspected during an overhaul because it is a massive undertaking to inspect tubes. And then it describes why. Then the next paragraph, beginning with line 11, as you drew attention to, additionally, during a non-overhaul tube repair or replacement, the failed tube is often subjected to additional testing. Now, that does not mean, or at least they have not testified, that non-overhaul tube repair is common, but that it does take place. And the failed tube, if removed from the plant, will be subjected to additional testing, probably outside of the plant in a laboratory. But it doesn't, again, his explanation for not repairing the tubes in November or December before the critical cold period in January is not that they thought that tube repair could be disregarded entirely. It's that they were comparing, according to their testimony, the cost and the risk of taking the plant down and then not finding the leaks and not being able to do the tube repair and losing several days of production and not achieving the end that was desired. And so they waited. And then when they waited, then the cold front came, and in the early part of it, the plant was taken down to repair the tube.
Madam Chair, once again, these are some fairly simple questions that do not require narrative. For example, you said it takes several days to install the scaffolding and move things around. When they do that in a common base on a common event of non-overhaul tube repair, that stays the same. The question is, in this case, this particular time, which would require the same exact scaffolding, they did not do the non-overhaul tube repair. They did not take them all out and replace them. You don't have to test them to see where they're at. You know they're going to be taken out in a couple of months. Is there any explanation for that event, for that outcome, other than Northwestern saying we didn't do it? This is critical to the final question on this issue.
Vice President, Commissioner Molnar, our answers are based on the testimony that was provided to us, and that's what we're limited to in the confines of this decision. If there were outside reasoning that was not given to us, it's not included in our decision-making process.
I understand that, and I thank you for the answer. That's my understanding as well. We're relying strictly on Northwestern's input for a $5 million question. So if I might, Madam Chair, line 22, same page, boiler tube leaks at the coal strip primarily results from erosion or corrosion occurring on the fire tubes, et cetera, et cetera. That's true. Nobody's challenging that. But it's not important as to why you take out a leaky pipe. You don't test it. You simply take it out because of the leak. Maybe you test it later to find out why. Find out if the tube thickness that you purchased was actually what you got, et cetera, and trying to make that determination. So MJB 20, so we're going to page 20, lines 15 and 16. The protocol is fine, but still it failed. Once detected and known to be growing, whether it's from audio or visual makes no difference. Why was the information not properly interpreted and the leaks fixed to avoid the catastrophic shutdown?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Molnar, your question is why weren't the leaks fixed? Well, when CU4, Northwestern Coal Strip Unit 4 had a tube leak, they were identified during walkdowns. And during those daily walkdowns, they monitored those tube leaks on a daily basis, which were by personnel listening to the pipes during the walkdown. And when the whistling sound would become greater, that would typically mean that the leak is becoming bigger. Now, in order for Northwestern to go, or not Northwestern, excuse me, Talon, the operator, to go in and fix these tube leaks, they would have had to either, according to their testimony, do a hot walk down and potentially find the tube leak if it was big enough to locate at that time, or if it wasn't big enough, they wouldn't have been able to detect it. And then they would have essentially, as Mr. Templeton mentioned, it would have been shut down for a certain amount of days. And then they would have had to get the plant back up and going again. And then a month, 3 weeks, 2 weeks, however long it took before those tube leaks become to a pea size or dime size, then they would have to be mandatory shut down the plant and fix those tube leaks.
Okay. That was a lot more than I wanted, but thank you for that. Page 21, we'll start out at line 1. Furnace pressure then stabilizes as the ID fans work harder to maintain the normal furnace pressure. These scenarios are typically suggest a large tube leak. ID fans were indeed part of the problem. Pressure is checkable. You don't have to listen for it. They knew they were getting bigger. They recorded they were getting bigger. And as it became bigger, the entire plant became in jeopardy. And yet they relied on a protocol, supposedly listening to these, and it led to a catastrophic outcome. Would you agree with that?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Molnar, based on my interpretation of the testimony, though the page MJB 20 and the lines that you had stated to, and then continuing on to MJB 21 is essentially background information on how large tube leaks are detected. And the fact that you reference lines 1 through 3 of MJB-21, the testimony is stating how large tube leaks are detected and how they grow based off the ID fans are working harder. But Northwestern's testimony isn't stating that that was the main cause of these tube leaks, or they were getting greater.
Okay, thank you. I'll go same page, MJB 21, line 16. Because it cannot maintain proper water or pressure requirements necessary to stay online. So you have the furnace pressure, that can be checked. We have the water pressure, that can be checked. And we have no action until it became catastrophic. Without rationalizing as to why they wouldn't do that, would it be a fair assumption from their own testimony that there's ways to check besides visual, besides audio? In other words, read the gauge to know that the situation is getting worse by the day. In 6 weeks, it went from a little leak to we got to shut it down. That was a daily progression. And they say that on the fire side, that's normal. So in a normal situation, I think somebody would do something, and you're telling me that Northwestern didn't, but you're the ones standing up for this report. I would like to know, why is it determined that it's audio and visual and they can't see them when the pressure gauges will tell them exactly what is going on?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Molnar. I'm not exactly sure which lines you're referring to when you say pressure gauges. However,
Line 16 and line 17,
of page,
MJB 21. Line 17 is real specific.
so those pressure requirements necessary to stay online, it's my understanding that if the tube leaks become greater to where those tubes are releasing steam into the boiler, the pressure it'll change drastically, which then affects the nitric oxide levels, which CU4 has air permits, and they have to comply with certain air permits.
Madam Chair, if I could just throw a little something in here at this point. As you know, most of you know, I used to do commercial grain handling. Protocol going into grain handling, in other words, a critical time. The decision's always made: do we fix this now? Do we fix it later? Can we get the parts? And dare we wait? I'm very familiar with these protocols, and I'm going to guess, just a guess, that gauge might be right there, but there's a similar one in the control room. You don't have to see it or hear it. Somebody can read that gauge and know that every day the pressure is changing and it's reaching critical mass. So if I could, MJB 24, L5 through 9, this was detected on November 22nd. Almost 3 weeks later, the thing falls apart. Almost 4, close to 2 months. Was the day ahead market starting then till the advent of the weather event? What was it? Was it above or below the cost of production at CU4?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Molnar, I don't know what the day ahead market was November 22nd.
Okay, with that in mind, page 7 of the what staff presented, by taking CU4 offline on January 7th, it is estimated the customer saved about $5,800 compared to taking offline in January 13th. I respectfully submit that was put in there to mislead. The question is not after the event. The question is before the event. The only evidence that I've seen, you can, is the chart that they gave out at the time. The day ahead was significantly less than Colstrip. Therefore, we would need to check to see the day ahead, to see if indeed there would have been greater savings to the customers to fix it earlier rather than later. It's my understanding in a general way, not day by day, that is true all the way up until the weather event was predicted to hit. Is there any disagreement with that? Seeing none.
Hold on, I think Mr.
Okay, I'm sorry, did I cut somebody off?
Yeah.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Molnar, I think we're kind of going down a rabbit hole here. What we're dealing with, and it was known at the beginning in 2008 when this commission pre-approved the acquisition of Colstrip. Commissioner Toole, at that time, the only dissenting vote on the commission, said in his dissent, it's an old coal plant. It was built in 1985. Okay, so at that time, it was already over 20 years old. It probably, if you built a brand new coal plant, it would probably have a lot of bells and whistles that would make this process easier. the process of maintenance, the process of monitoring the performance of the plant, the efficiency of the plant. But aside from the fact it would be hard to build a new coal plant, even in Montana at this time, given the permitting problems and the cost, it's not before us. Northwestern is in charge of maintaining an old plant, and they make decisions day to day. And if we had wanted to inspect their decisions minutely, we should have requested a hearing and grilled Mike Barnes about exactly what was going on. We did not. And I have read his testimony, and I've read Joe Steinmetz's testimony, and they actually do a better job than usual of explaining the alternatives and why they did or didn't make certain decisions at the time. To assess whether it would have been cheaper on November 22nd to shut the plant down is a counterfactual. We don't have that evidence. It would be pure speculation on my part, even knowing exactly what the market looked like at that time, to make a decision or give any advice on that matter, because we don't know that they would have found the leak or how long the plant would have been out and how much replacement power we would have been assessing at this time. In my experience, the commission twice has disallowed, due to plant failures or outages, for the cost of replacement power. And that was Mill Creek, or now it's Dave Gates in the first instance, 2012, and then Coal Strip Unit 4 in 2013 and 14. In both those cases, they were rather extraordinary outages.
Madam Chair, if we could get into the closing statements later, this is a fairly simple question.
I'm just saying that's my opinion as a staff member, and any interpretation of mine as to why Northwestern did or didn't do any of these decisions is speculative, other than what I can actually read in their testimony.
Madam Chair, normally I wouldn't respond this way, but with your permission, there's no such thing as an old coal plant. This is rebuilt every 4 years.
Commissioner Molnar, the chair's going to ask you to ask for clarification on the things that you don't understand, but I don't think the forum here is to badger staff. Ask for information is fine, but it seems like we might be entering into arguing with staff, and the testimony is.
And I won't do that. But Madam Chair, as I started out, they are saying this is accurate. I am saying there is no evidence that it's accurate or inaccurate. For example, during that normal time frame, mid-November to the end of December, what is the normal day ahead market? What is the normal weather? All these things should be looked at by somebody who is not jaundiced, somebody who doesn't stand to hold on to $5 million. We are relying on Northwestern's statements only. That's my point. If they can show me that this is in any way brought about by looking at both sets of facts, I'm good. If they, like I, have experience and can say, normally this is the factor, this is that. Yes, I also question this. No, I don't question that. So at the end, I'm going to make a alternative motion, and it's very important, Madam Chairman, commissioners, and fellow travelers, to know whether or not there's a possibility, quite possibly a strong possibility, that if we pay somebody to take a second look at this, a professional, exactly the way the Montana Consumer Council does, might we save ratepayers $5 million, or might everybody have a sense that indeed these were prudent through the eyes, not of a in-mass grain handling guy, but through the eyes of somebody with a lot of experience. So I do not intend to badger anybody, but MJB 25, line 11, since every coal strip owner agreed to this course of action, apparently it's unanimous, and it turned out to be a faulty decision, Should they not share in the cost instead of Northwestern customers? And since it is so slow moving, 6 weeks, is it an accident or something that could have been prevented by a more prudent, rational introspection by the professionals, in this case, the owners? It's almost like an insurance question. Was it an accident or was it preventable? So I really don't want to get into, as Commissioner Fielder pointed out, arguing about it. We have staff here that knows what they're doing. They made the decision. It turned out to be catastrophic. Do you think that the catastrophic outcome was preventable if they had used the facts on hand rather than their protocol?
I'm sorry, just to clarify, Madam Chair, Commissioner Molnar, is your question asking staff if the shutdown was preventable? I just want to clarify
No,
what
the
the,
shutdown was going to happen. Was waiting almost 2 months prudent? Was their decision wrong because they followed protocol, when protocol in this case led to catastrophe, but could have been prevented or could not have been prevented? That's the question. And I think that in the end, that's what we have to ask ourselves. And my firm belief is that what they're telling us here shows that it is speculation at best, and we need more information. Would there be any agreement to that at all?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Molnar, as stated in our final draft order, staff believes that the actions taken in shutting down the plant and repairing the tube leak were prudent.
Shutting it down was prudent. The question is, was waiting until it was 24 below zero, was the wait prudent, or should action have been taken earlier? For example, you buy a car. Things are going well. You pull out your driveway, put a little transmission fluid. You check it, you add a quart. Next Monday, you add a quart. Next Monday, you add a quart and a half. Next Monday, they're towing you to the dealer. They say, this is under warranty. In other words, in this case, customers are going to pay for the repairs. This is under warranty. Why didn't you come in earlier? I wanted to wait until my vacation. In this case, we wanted to wait until the turnaround. They are not going to honor your warranty. You did not make a prudent decision. I'm questioning whether or not they made a prudent decision with all kinds of pressure gauges showing it was wrong. Audio and visual inspection showed it was wrong. Fireside showed it was wrong. And prior experience was they shut it down and fixed it without waiting for a turnaround. I'm saying and asking, was it prudent for them to wait? Or was it imprudent to hope to make it to the turnaround, which in reading this several times, I have no idea why they pinned anything on that.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Molnar, I appreciate the question, and actually it's a very interesting question. What we do have only testimony from one side in this matter. Even MCC did not testify on this additional issue. But I'm not qualified to answer your question.
That's
like I say, it's a counterfactual, and I don't know. I don't have the kind of experience that would be necessary to say, well, you know, on November 22nd, protocol or not, you should have known that that leak was going to get bad, and it was the beginning of winter, and it could become catastrophic. But I don't have that expertise, and we don't have the record to rule on that. And to be honest with you, I've been told since I've worked here that that's not our position. We don't have an advocacy staff here at the commission. We don't have a section of staff that kind of analyzes and looks for holes in Northwestern's operations. We don't have those kind of qualified personnel on our staff. Now, if we were to hire people like that, or to hire an outside expert and hold a hearing, then maybe we could answer those questions. But I, for one, am not qualified, and I would venture the same for my colleagues here.
And I would venture the same for your colleagues as well. And I'm not qualified either. That's why my alternative motion coming up, substitute motion, might shed some light on this. MJB 26, lines 18 through 13, welds and blowers are known causation. And the causation in this instance. Therefore, the outcome had a high degree of predictability. And I believe, and I'd like to have your input on this, with a high degree of probability that where you have whistle or welds and blowers that have the known outcomes that they do, and that's exactly the setup here. We go back to, was it prudent to wait and hope to make it to the turnaround? Or knowing that you have bad actors in here, welds and blowers, would it not, do you have any reason to believe that that was prudent to wait, to try and wait another month, which I've never understood, as opposed to just fix it?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Molnar, that seems to be a question that keeps being asked towards staff, and I believe Mr. Templeton had answered the last question well. And these tube leaks caused by erosion from wall blowers, Northwestern testified that that is a common effect from wall blowers, is that tube leaks do appear and do happen from that. That's one of the causations of it. And so to your question, Staff Attorney Teresa Umans had mentioned that staff's position on this is that we recommend that Northwestern's actions were prudent, and that to approve the draft final order in front of you. And as to your question, I think that is a question for the commission that they may need to address.
Well, that may be, but we're supposed to vote based on fact and law. And an assumption that Northwestern is right may turn out to be a fact, but can anybody in the front seat, in the front row here, tell me that it is a fact that when, and you didn't mention fireside, on the fire side is when you're going to get your leaks and they're going to get big quick. If you have a blower, your leaks are going to get big quick. And if it's on a weld, you're going to get big leaks quick. And yet it was ignored. Is it your testimony now that if you own that plant and you were a merchant plant, you can now go back to the consumers? You have to simply be competitive. Would you, because that's our job, frankly. If you had competition, would you make the same decision? So that's what I'm trying to frame here. Would you, as staff members, if you owned a merchant plant, make the repairs or hope to make it for another couple of months?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Molnar, we can only base our decision on the testimony that was given to us. MCC had an opportunity to intervene on behalf of the ratepayers, and in fact, they were involved in this case, and they chose not to give us additional testimony after Northwestern explained why they shut down when they did. MCC could have come back in and said, well, I think this is wrong. And MCC chose not to do that on behalf of the ratepayers. So we had to make this decision based on the evidence in front of us, which is what we did.
Thank you. I'm going to skip the next one. I'm going to go to L19 on MJB 29. And I've got a handout in front of you that I'll use for some sort of clarity. L1920, transmission outages are commonly rescheduled. They're talking here, well, we're going to take down and repair our lines. Well, they're commonly rescheduled. The risk is always there and should not paralyze a prudent decision. Tell me when I'm wrong. Again, the ratepayers were not in a position to determine. So the fault in these decisions, do you feel, belong to the ratepayers, the shareholders, or out of the pockets of the owners group. Before you answer that, I've sent these out email and put them in people's boxes, my fellow commissioners' boxes. Page 1, it stays the same, all of them. There's like 3 or 4 of these. To ensure reliability, MISO is working with members and neighbors to call on long lead resources and reschedule planned generation and transmission outages, return transmission to service, and recall generation from planned outages. What's causing this? Their estimates on production by wind and solar are falling short. If you're tearing down your transmission lines, put them back up and connect them to these plants. If you're tearing your plant down, put it back together. These are emergencies, not 6 week ahead, slow walking, ongoing failure. MISO will work with members to reschedule outages on a case-by-case basis. MISO issued the following declarations, et cetera, et cetera. In other words, to say that, well, we were going to tear down some lines. Lines blow down, burn down, situations change. It's not catastrophic. It is something you simply handle. Those, as I understand it, the transmission rebuilds, whatever they were doing there, were months after this. True, it might take another 6 months to get a crew back, but that's still better than a $5 million bill for market purchases. I think a prudent person would agree. Is there any disagreement with that?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Molnar, according to the testimony, the transmission outage was scheduled for January 22nd through February 1st.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a substitute motion.
Before a motion's made, I just wanted to say something to staff, if I may.
Yeah, let's hold on a second here. Commissioner, we've given you great latitude in allowing questions before a motion has been put on the table or put before us. So I want to allow each commissioner to be able to ask questions of staff regarding the final order that they've drafted and any clarifications that are needed from staff. And then once there's a motion before the commission, we can debate that motion and argue with each other if we want to. But for now, let's just allow commissioners to gain clarification from staff. Commissioner Bukacek.
Well, I just wanted to commend them. May I do that now?
You may.
Okay. So I wanted to commend you for how you've comported yourselves just now with the foregoing questions. And a lot of them were already asked and answered in the testimony, in my opinion. And you just kept your demeanor and explained things extremely well. So I just wanted to thank you for that.
Are there any other questions of staff or comments before we entertain a motion? I've got a few. Thank you for the clarity in the draft order. I found it very, very concise, and I did go through the testimony, the supplemental testimony, and the draft order fairly closely. I just want to make sure I understand this correctly. So Talon is the operator of the plant. So they're the ones that manage the facility, the CU4 facility, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And Northwestern is one of the 6 owners that contracted with Talon to operate that plant. Is that correct?
Madam Chair, yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Talon is also an owner.
Okay. And is Northwestern a majority owner in CU4?
Madam Chair, Northwestern owns 30% of CU4. Talon owns 30% of CU3. Together they have a sharing agreement. So they each de facto, not de jure, but de facto own 15% of 3 and 4 each.
Okay. So, so Northwestern's not a majority owner of CU4, so they don't get to make decisions unilaterally, correct?
Madam Chair, I do believe they are to become a majority owner January 1.
right? But they weren't during this case, and they aren't yet, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then, so Talon operates the plant. Talon Talon employed the engineers who do the walk downs and identified these different leaks, one in late November, one in mid-December, and then one in late December, correct? Those were Talon employees that identified those things.
Madam Chair, the record doesn't speak to that I know of, but it could be their contractors as well.
Okay, but Talon is responsible for operating the plant, so they're the ones that are doing
I
the
believe so.
monitoring. All right, so the third leak they found was on December 17th. Is that what it was? December 17th or 18th? No, December. Give me those dates again, will you please?
Madam Chair, I believe it was November 22nd, December 18th, and December 27th.
Okay, so after the third one, that was December 27th. And then it was about a week later that they sent a notice out to the owners, informing them that there were leaks identified that needed repair.
Madam Chair, yes, I believe it was January 5th where they sent out.
Is there anything in the record indicating that the owners were notified before January 5th that there were leaks detected that would require repair?
Madam Chair, not that the staff at this table is aware of.
I didn't see anything either. It appears from what I've read that the first notice that the owners received was on January 5th. And at that time, the Talon had proposed shutting down the plant. I believe it was January 13th to the 17th. And that's when the discussions began about, wait a second, there's a weather forecast that's very highly unfavorable for a shutdown during that period with the Arctic cold front moving in. Is that correct?
Madam Chair, I believe that's correct.
And so at that point, Northwestern and other owners engaged in conversation with Talon about moving the date of the shutdown up to try to get the repairs done before the cold snap set in. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe that's correct.
And then, Neil? go
Madam
ahead.
Chair, one maybe minor correction to staff's response to an earlier question. I don't recall the question in exactly at this time, but on Steinmetz page 8, line 13 says Northwestern and the other coal strip owners became aware that the plant had several small tube leaks beginning in late November 2023, but at that time they were not threatening production of generation. So they were aware of the small tube leaks in November.
Point me to that line, please. That's JMS 13,
JMS page 8,
page 8.
line 13. So, Madam Chair, Steinmetz gives a perspective from the market desk.
Okay. And, the way I read that was because we know that there was a leak identified on November 22nd. So there were the first small leak was identified on November 22nd. So I'm not sure how to interpret this because Steinmetz is saying Northwestern and the other owners became aware that the plant had several small tube leaks, and those leaks began on November 22nd. They're not necessarily saying they were notified. I didn't see anything that said when they got notice other than the January 5th that Talon sent out the notice to the owners. Is there anything that would tell us that they received notice about those prior to January 5th?
You mean it, Madam Chair? Do you mean that is there in the record a written notice that Talon sent out to the owners?
Well, we know that they gave notice to the owners on January 5th suggesting that they needed to do a shutdown, and they gave the dates on when they needed to shut down. They said, this is critical enough that we need to do a shutdown. Here's your notice. And then those owners discussed and changed the date and agreed on an earlier date to avoid that cold snap. That's my understanding. Do I have that right?
Madam Chair, I think, and perhaps I'm inferring this from the I think I believe that the other owners, like Northwestern, have representatives like Mike Barnes, who are at the plant or in association adjacent to the plant
Okay.
at all times. So they may be aware that the plant had several small tube leaks, but it was in early January that the weather forecast began coming in. On Steinmetz's page 9, line 1, on January 5th, the coal strip operator notified the owner's market desks that the tube leaks had worsened and posed a threat to generation. So at that point, and at that point, they notified the market desk because of the obvious implications to market prices and the utility's ability to provide their customers with sufficient generation over incoming freeze block. And so then it kind of, the attention ramped up to the market desk from just the operators who were, that's my understanding.
Thank you. So the operators were monitoring, the operator was monitoring, Northwestern had a superintendent on a plant superintendent on site. So it doesn't say he was aware, but more than likely he would have been aware that there was issues that started arising back on November 22nd. With one small leak was identified November 22nd, another one was identified December 18th, and then a third one was identified December 27th. Is that when it was? Okay. All right. Thank you for that. That helps clarify things for me. So I do recall from our informational meeting with Northwestern, they said basically we had a judgment call. Should we try to get through the cold snap? They knew the cold snap was coming. Should we try to keep operating through the cold snap and risk the catastrophic shutdown failure during the cold snap, or should we try to get ahead of it and make the repairs before the cold snap set in? And so it appears to me that they made the decision to go ahead and try to get the repairs done before the cold snap. That the dates that they gave here in the record are consistent with those forecasts of trying. They wanted to finish on January 11th. The cold snap was forecast to hit January 13th. They ended up finishing the morning of January 12th. And the cold snap set in on January 12th, but they weren't fully ramped up yet because they'd finished the repairs at like 6 a.m. the morning of January 12th and then had to ramp up the plant and bring it back online. And so there was about a day of very cold weather where they had to purchase power elsewhere to make up. Am I remembering all that correctly? Does that sound right?
Madam Chair, that matches my recollection.
Okay. All right, so they have some testimony in here about if they had waited or if they had done what Talon had suggested with the cold snap starting on, or with the outage starting on January 13th, that it would have cost approximately $8.3 million using the mid-C index if they had been shut down during that cold snap. And they said by taking CU4 offline on January 7th instead of January 13th, it's estimated that the customer saved about $5.8 million compared to taking it offline as Talon had proposed, correct?
Madam Chair, correct. That is the testimony they gave.
Okay. And MCC, you had said MCC wasn't involved in this, but MCC did intervene in this, didn't they? Early on, they intervened, but then they didn't question, they didn't request additional testimony or anything. They didn't contest it after. They did contest it at first. Can you explain that to me?
Madam Chair, yes, MCC originally intervened in the case and issued data requests to Northwestern. And then we issued a additional issue notice, which Northwestern responded to with additional testimony, and MCC did not respond with their own additional testimony after that.
Okay. So MCC didn't put forward any recommendations on opposing the PCAM that went into effect last year, in 2024, the interim rate.
Madam Chair, MCC did ask data requests originally, and they did ask data requests following Northwestern's additional testimony, but they did not offer additional testimony themselves. Is that
So they didn't refute what Northwestern submitted at all, rebut, refute,
correct?
argue with them, disagree with them. Okay. All right, so I have a question here, and it's on page 6 of the draft order. It's paragraph 31. And it says Northwestern also stated that if CU4 had been fully available January 7th through the 10th, they would have likely had a mix of reduced day ahead and reduced hourly purchases, estimating the total cost of the outage to be approximately $2.5 million. Can anyone put some more meat on the bones to that paragraph for me and help us understand what paragraph 31 means?
Madam Chair, Madam Chair, Commissioners, in Northwestern's analysis, if they recommend if CU4 would have been online, they would have had market purchases still, and they would have had also market sales. And when you combine the two, they estimate the cost of about 2.5 million. And primarily because they were going to be using the mid-C day ahead market and the mid-C hourly market. And those prices, of course, are going to be changing daily, hourly. And so that was their estimate based off the prices that they gathered from the evidence.
Okay, so in other words, they're saying that the outage cost $2.5 million net?
Correct. That's their understanding about with their estimate of what the outage cost net of those two. Correct.
Okay, and if they would have waited until January 13th, the cost would have been $8.3 million.
I'm sure
And
that
that's how
correct.
they've arrived at the figure of having saved customers $5.8 million by expediting the repairs.
that's correct.
I see they went into discussion about hedging here, but I don't think we need to go down that road at this point. We put some parameters on when they could hedge, and they could only use hedging when there was a shortage projected, and I don't know that they had a shortage projected that met our criteria, so that was kind of an off the table solution at that point. Do we know if they obtained power from CU3 during this outage? Is that factored into their costs?
Madam Chair, Commissioner, CU3 was running at full operation. It didn't affect the CU4.
Okay, and they had the shared agreement so they could draw on CU3 if they weren't able to draw on CU4, is that correct?
Madam Chair, in my understanding, it's not just during outages, it's kind of all the time they share the outputs of 3 and 4. So they would be getting half of the 30%, so 15% of CU3 production at all times, which is about 111 megawatts nameplate.
Okay. All right, and all 6 owners agreed on the date of moving the date to January 7th through the 10th for the repairs, correct? Or is January 7th through 11th for the repairs, is that correct?
Madam Chair, that's correct.
All right, I think that clears up things for me at this point. Are there any other questions of staff and commissioners? I see none. Thank you to our staff for this, for your time and your patience with us. And now we can entertain a motion.
Thank you. Madam Chair, staff commissioners, my substitute motion is to authorize the investigation and an investigation into the prudency of a decision to not address the leaks prior to January 2024 weather event as described in docket 2024.09.090, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Molnar, a substitute motion would be out of order because there's no motion before us, so you could rephrase that as a motion if you like. And then just rephrase it so we can understand what you're.
Madam Chair, actually, the motion is in the work order. Nobody's made it, I don't think, but
That's
so
right,
should we
Commissioner.
have that first, or we just go into what I want to do as a motion?
Well,
I'll be happy to make the motion.
we can do it either way. We can have a motion as per the recommendation that's been asked of us, or we can have a completely separate motion if we like.
I believe Commissioner Bukacek wants to make a motion. If she does not, I will make my motion.
Okay. Commissioner Bukacek, did you have a motion?
I do. Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to approve staff's recommendations to approve Northwestern's 2024 PCAM.
Okay. Is there a second? Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, so the motion has been made to approve the 2024 PCAM per the staff the order put before us today. And that motion has been seconded. Now we will have discussion on the motion.
I'd like to defend my motion.
Okay, thank you for reminding me, Commissioner Bukacek. It is your right to open on your motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, extremely well done, staff. Page 3 to 5 of the draft order provides summary of the analytic support based on substantial evidence for the following being just and reasonable. Number 1, Northwestern's proposed annual deferred rate adjustment. 2, their supply rate adjustment. And 3, Northwestern's amortization of the annual deferred rate adjustment over the proposed 12-month period. Page 5 to 7 of the excellent draft order summarizes the analytic basis for considering prudent Northwestern's actions and decision January 2024 to repair the small boiler tube leaks when they did. And it summarizes why it was reasonable Northwestern's management of Colstrip CO4 scheduled outage. Analysis supported these decisions being prudent and consistent with utility industry best practices. I think it was lined out extremely clearly. This analysis by staff is the justification for including in the deferred rate recovery of market purchase costs in January 2024, based on the analysis of PCAM adjustment requests as just and reasonable and management prudent. I support my motion to approve Northwestern's 2024 PCAM.
Okay, further discussion on the motion.
Madam Chair, if I might.
Commissioner Molnar.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Bukacek is relying strictly on a file document from Northwestern. So it's really not testimony that is in any way vetted. It's unchallenged. MCC did not challenge. I don't know why. I had long discussions with Mr. Brown when I was a senator and this came up. Since then, we've been involved in cases in which we can't talk with each other because of ex parte. But there is no evidence that these are accurate. There's no sworn testimony that they're accurate. There's no examination, cross-examination, recross, discovery of any kind. No discovery, just a statement, one-sided, quite possibly self-serving, possibly accurate statements. There's no analysis. Commissioner Bukacek just said that there's an analysis. There's no analysis. I read it as well. It's their statement. It's like if you're in a car wreck and you file with the police that the red car came out of nowhere and hit me while I was parked at the stoplight. But you can't find the red car. It's a statement that is not substantiated. It's not substantiated. So that's why I will oppose that. Madam Chair, I'd like to make my substitute motion.
Before you do that, if you'd allow me, I just want to have a little discussion on the main motion, particularly your comments here. So on March 11th, the commission voted to notify the parties of additional issues in this docket. And when an issue is not adequately addressed by a party in a proceeding, the commission must identify that issue and provide the parties with opportunity to address it. And so on March 11th, we voted to do that, and we notified Northwestern what the additional issues were. And then we amended that on March 21st. And I would like to just get some clarification, if I could, from staff on were the additional issues that were ordered by the commission addressed sufficiently in the supplemental testimony that was given.
Madam Chair, yes, staff believes that the additional issues that were requested were sufficiently addressed in the additional testimony.
And Commissioner Molnar, did you have any particular issues in that notice of additional issues that specifically were not addressed?
I'm not exactly remembering exactly. I gave my issues to Lucas, former Chief Legal Lucas. And he said, I don't think you should challenge this, but I will if you want me to. I did. The next thing I knew, I don't know if what you're talking about was answered by staff or here by commissioners. But the next I remember hearing about anything was a couple months ago when I got this. And I did go to Lucas and I told him I have issues. And he said, well, MCC is not going to challenge it. And I said, we are not bound by MCC. We're bound by our own need for fact and law.
Objection hearsay.
It is my understanding.
Bringing up former chief legal who's no longer here to either refute or agree with what you're saying.
The chair recognizes the point of order, and the chair would ask the members from naming names and representing what someone said. It's fine to say what you believe was the case, but please don't attempt to put words in others' mouths.
I was not surprised that I would have to file something. I'm not aware the commission has ruled. I believe staff did. If I'm wrong on that, I've been wrong on things before. And I think it's immaterial. We now have a final order before us that says the commission agrees. And my follow-up would be, agrees with what? The opposition? Testimony? Fact? Expert witnesses? We are agreeing that whatever Northwestern says is fine with us. Quite often I go that way because I think it's right. In this case, as Madam Chair, you pointed out, well, it comes out 2.5 million. I've never heard that number before. If you look at the number, it's market sales. I'm not talking about market sales. I'm talking about market purchases by decision. What they could have sold is immaterial. It's a red herring. It's there for the purpose of leading us astray. I was told it was 4.5 million. Easily could be. My calculations, Madam Chair, were how many hours it was out, $1,000 a megawatt. I recognize not every megawatt was 1,000, some were 800, some were 900. the amount used changed, but just using a round number, it comes out to $4 to $5 million of ratepayer money. And before I would sign off on $5 million of ratepayer money, if I were a loan officer at the bank, I would ask to know that indeed the money was properly owed. And that's what I'm asking us to do. I'm not asking us to rule today. I'm asking to hire an expert, have them take a look at this, and have them bring it back to us for a knowledgeable, learned decision. It may be that we'll waste $50,000. I'm dang sure MCC should have wasted it. They didn't. That's their decision. This is my decision. And I'd like for the commission to go along with knowing what the facts are, not just buying whatever Northwestern is selling on this issue. For $5 million, I think it's a prudent step.
Okay, so Commissioner Molnar, it sounds like you're speaking to what we anticipate as a substitute motion.
Perhaps, but it goes to what was just said about that there's proof, there's testimony, there's all of these things, and there aren't any, and that's why I have a substitute motion.
Okay, before you get to that, are there any other commissioners that'd like to speak to the main motion before we recognize Commissioner Molnar for a substitute motion? Seeing none,
Just one thing.
Commissioner Bukacek?
Thank you. So I just wanted to reiterate what you had said, Madam Chair. There were things that were asked. As far as staff is concerned, they were adequately, sufficiently addressed. So I just wanted to reiterate that. And I also wanted to say, bring up what you brought up, Madam Chair, that it was March 11th that this decision was made to ask for the information. That was quite a few months ago, and there was adequate time to ask for more if a commissioner or staff thought that more information was needed. The analysis by Mr. Barnes is 32 pages long, and it's quite sophisticated, and staff put together robust analysis as well.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Bukacek. Commissioner Molnar, you're recognized for a motion, the purpose of making a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My substitute motion is as follows: to authorize an investigation into the prudency of the decision to not address the leaks prior to the January 2024 weather event as described in docket 2024.09.090, Madam Chair.
May I ask for clarification of the motion?
May I have a written copy of that so I can restate it?
It's on what I handed out. It's on the last page. It's only 2 pages.
Okay, thank you for providing a written copy. So the substitute motion is to authorize the investigation into the prudency of the decision to not address the leaks prior to the January 2024 weather event described in docket 2024-09.090. Is there a second?
Second.
The motion has been seconded. Commissioner Molnar, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, Madam Chair. I think just about all the hair has been beat off this horse, but in fact, if we're going to make this decision of $5 million of other people's money, it should be based on something other than a one-sided discussion from Northwestern. Commissioner Bukacek just talked about staff asking questions. I'm not aware staff asked any questions of Northwestern. We just are accepting this. And Northwestern, like anybody, if they're never challenged, we'll assume they're not going to be challenged. And it's our job to give them reason to always assume that there will be a challenge. And therefore, everything must be airtight, not loose. And I think this is as loose as it gets. So I'm asking that quite possibly for the first time in a long time, that we not simply accept when, things like this are pretty rare, but, settlements, et cetera, that in this case, because there is so many questions that I have raised. Staff has not dug into this in my questions with the center person there when this first came up. Does anybody in the PSC have any sort of knowledge on overhauls, turnarounds? No. We're economists, we're attorneys. Could not be more true. In fact, in a case like this, we would be remiss if we did not hire someone to take a look at these same set of facts and actually rule that these actions were taken within the best practices as published somewhere, and they were right. Nobody's right all the time. You can be right and have a catastrophic outcome. Were their actions and reactions as would be considered to be normal in a situation like this from other coal plant owners? That's all I'm asking for, is before I vote yes on something like this, I want to know that there is a source for the rationale I am using other than Northwestern said. That's all I'm asking for. So with that, Madam Chair, I close on my motion.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Commissioner Pinochi has a question for staff.
So back in 2015, coal plant went down, and I sat on energy, and they said that it was due to poor maintenance. They said, hey, look, if you don't oil the bearings and do the proper maintenance, and the machine goes down, and the plant shuts down, and the ratepayer pays more, should there be liability to Northwestern? That was discussed, and the Public Service Commission was pretty involved. So this question certainly has come up before, because I had to face it when I sat on energy. If we were to do this investigation, what steps does staff think they would take to do this investigation to get the questions answered that Commissioner Molnar is asking? What are your thoughts?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Pinochi, as far as steps that would be taken, from what I understand, from what Commissioner Molnar is requesting, staff would not be taking steps. It would be handing this consultant or expert the record and asking if they agree with staff's interpretation that the action of Northwestern was prudent to shut down when it did and repair the tube leaks. If I'm misunderstanding Commissioner Molnar's request, I'm happy to rephrase my answer.
Follow up.
Go ahead.
Do you have someone in mind, or is this something we'd have to have a meeting with to pick this person? And here's a good question. Has something like this happened before? Certainly back in 2015, this was a big issue. What are your thoughts?
If I may, Neil,
Go.
I apologize. Madam Chair, Commissioner Pinochi, as far as an expert goes, it would be similar to the process that we do for an IRP or for the wildfire mitigation expert that we're currently looking for. We have to go through the procurement bureau, and that takes, time to get through that process. And then we have to look at the individuals that apply to be our expert and so on and so forth.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Pinochi, I'm not sure exactly which outage you're talking about. In 2014, there was an outage. In 2013, at Colstrip Unit 4, which is a pretty big one, but that involved when they were overhauling the plant and they pulled the rotor out. When they put it back in, they damaged the core, the windings in the core, and there was a short, and the entire plant was down for months. That may be what you're talking about. In the hydros docket, we did hire some consultants to look at the dam and assure the commission that the dams were in good shape, and that so it's a matter of hiring an expert. Otherwise, the commission, if they wanted to have an advocacy position, then you have to hire a witness, and then you'd have staff who would have to be separate from other staff. And that's always been a problem here because we're kind of short-staffed to actually have it. Then you could have an expert that advised the commission, but you wouldn't have an evidentiary record that would be opposing the record that Northwestern has provided. If you understand what I'm saying.
Do thank you. And that was the outage. It was months, not days, and it was in the millions.
It was many months and it was many millions, and the commission did find imprudence and a disallowance for the cost of the replacement power.
Follow up.
A follow-up.
That's important. What you just said. They did find some fault.
Yes, I don't recall the order specifically. I think there was some fault in some of the operational steps, perhaps, that were taken, and the fact that Northwestern did not purchase insurance to cover the cost of replacement power. But the commission did find a disallowance in that case. In that case, MCC did testify, and they did propose a disallowance in their own right. So the commission there was making a decision that was based on the evidence provided by the utility and then evidence provided by one or more intervening parties, and not just on evidence that it provided. I only mention this because I'll let Teresa speak to it as to what our legal position is, making a finding of disallowance in the absence of opposing testimony. If we'd be required to actually supplement the record as it stands with commission advocacy, with commission testimony.
The chair recognizes the question because I had the same question. Would the investigator be limited to the record that we have now and reviewing that record that we have now?
Madam Chair, at this particular point in the proceedings, yes, that expert will be limited to what is in the record.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other, Commissioner Wellborn?
Thank you for staff, please. And I think that also answered part of my question, but also if you could just drill down a little bit on both the, say in the presence of this motion, moving forward, what does that look like in real time and from a practical application in making something like this happen?
Madam Chair, President Wellborn, just for clarification of your question, motion to hire an expert, what that would look like time-wise?
Correct. What does it look like, not only to hire it, but how long would it take for that process to play itself out? And then from a practical application, what are we potentially gaining as far as new information that we may not already have? So I guess that's where the practical application piece of that comes in.
So time-wise, as I indicated earlier, hiring an expert will be similar to the IRP process. And unlike the wildfire mitigation expert process, where it would be about 6 to 8 months, based on my understanding, to work through the procurement process, initially starting with the bid to when we have a contract and have hired an expert. So my best guess is 6 to 8 months to go through that process. And again, we're looking at, here's the bid, who's applying to the bid, do we agree with all their qualifications, and selecting the expert that we want to hire, and then going through the contract negotiation process. As far as the information that we would gain, at this point in the process, all the data requests have been asked. I will clarify that The commission did ask data requests initially, and then we did, as I noted, issue the additional notice request or additional testimony request. And so the information gathering portion of the process has been completed. Any information we would get from the expert is simply pointing out, I agree with what staff interpreted from the testimony, or I guess possibly, here's what staff missed. I would suggest denying it for this reason or that reason. Does that fully answer your question?
Yeah, sort of. Thank you. No, it, you give it your best. I mean, yes, it does.
Any further discussion on the substitute motion? Okay, here's where I'm at on this. I agreed with digging further into this issue, and we did. I think the commission's been fairly thorough on it. We brought in Northwestern Energy for an informational meeting on specifically on the cold weather event. With the commission, we had Q&A with them to further flesh it out. We moved and issued the draft or the additional issues order, and then the additional testimony order so that we have a very robust record. MCC did intervene and did have an opportunity to disagree or rebut Northwestern's additional testimony, and they chose not to, indicating no disagreement with it. And given that we are looking at hiring an investigator to look at what we already have in front of us, and then taking 6 to 8 months to procure somebody to do that, and then paying them potentially, tens of thousands of dollars to do that. I don't think it's that confusing. I don't think the issue is that confusing before us today. I don't think that an investigator is needed to review the record for us and tell us what the record says. I think our staff did a good job with their analysis on that, and I feel that I understand it well enough to know that Northwestern had exercised prudency, had looked through the options, had worked with the other owners and the operator to try to address the issue in the most prudent manner they could. So I believe there's enough information here to be able to determine that. So I'm going to oppose the substitute motion for a special investigator. With that, we'll go to a vote on the substitute motion. What is the commission's pleasure? All in favor of Commissioner Molnar's motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
And I didn't hear Commissioner Wellborn's vote.
I have a procedural question, if I may.
As long as it's limited to just process.
It is limited to process. So my vote today, if it was to abstain would I still have the opportunity to bring this substitute motion back for reconsideration? Or would I have to be voting on the
No, a member who,
resisting side, if you will?
yeah, no, as I recall, a member who abstains or was not present was not on the losing side of a vote, so does have the privilege of bringing a vote forward for reconsideration.
Does or does not?
He does. A member does.
I abstain.
All right, so the motion fails 2-2 with 1 abstention. We're back on the main motion. Is there any discussion on Commissioner Bukacek's motion, which was to adopt the draft order approving Northwestern Energy's 2024 PCAM? I think it's all been said. Would you like to close on your motion, Commissioner Bukacek?
I would. We had 32 plus pages of analysis by Mr. Barnes. We had multiple quality analysis by our staff. So I think if we were going to be compelled to hire expert witnesses for anything that we want more information, we're going to be doing it every time. I think that, President Ronald Reagan, he was famous for quoting the Russian proverb, trust but verify. And he was referring to Gorbachev and the arms race when he said that. So he was not talking about someone that he trusted across the board.
All right, with that, before we take a vote, the chair does recognize and appreciate Commissioner Molnar having outlined his points and writing his substitute motion. Thank you for that. All right, so with that, all in favor of Commissioner Bukacek's motion to approve the draft order as the final order, approving Northwestern Energy's 2024 PCAM, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
And all opposed say nay.
Nay.
No.
Okay, the motion carries 3-2. Commissioner Molnar and Pinochi dissenting. All right,
I'm sure, just for clarification,
yes, Commissioner Molnar.
Commissioner Wellborn asked, and I'm confused. So if we've already voted to accept the original motion, how then is it possible for him to go back for reconsideration on the alternative motion?
It's a very good question. Commissioner Molnar, so President Wellborn would not be able to ask for reconsideration of the motion. Excuse me, he could ask for reconsideration of the motion that we just passed because he was on the prevailing side. Any of the three commissioners on the prevailing side could raise it for reconsideration, although there are time requirements for reconsideration and there's some, it's not as easy as, if you wanted, usually reconsideration is because you realize, oh, I made a mistake. I've got new information. I want to do something different. And normally it's done during the same meeting. There may be some other ways procedurally to get at that. But he could also, since he wasn't in the losing side of the substitute motion that you made, he could also bring that for reconsideration as well. But neither, as I recall, neither member who lost the motion could. So that brings us to some real. I'll need probably Dave Smith to dig into that further. If a commissioner does want to bring anything up for reconsideration, we'll have to dig into the rule book and see how we do that.
Okay, so as far as you were saying on, would have to do it today, but there may be other things.
There may be.
David or somebody, 'cause this could happen in the future, possibly. I would like to know just what those externalities would be that would allow it to go beyond one day, and is one day actually accurate, or is it just during the meeting? Can you give us some flesh out on that, please?
Are you prepared to answer that on the spot, or would you like some time to look into that for us? Would you come up to a mic and then please, Mr. Smith?
Madam Chair, I'll gladly relinquish my microphone to Mr.
I think he's got one, but I think, our regulatory staff, I think we can excuse you because the commission has dispensed with that motion. And now we're just on a procedural question. Should someone want to bring it up again?
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the commission.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Vice President Fielder and members of the commission, the Vice President is correct. Under Robert's Rules 37, there is provisions to reconsider, but normally when you are on the prevailing side, and you want to reconsider it, it has to be done in the same session or same meeting. So that's an accurate statement of the rules, but to go further into reconsideration, which is Rule 37, I would need some additional time.
Thank you.
Be happy to send it to all the commissioners.
Okay, all right, seeing, no further work sessions for us, we will go back to announcements, and the next commission meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, November 4th, 2025. Commissioner Bukacek, did you have an announcement or did you get that out? Oh, I know what you wanted to do. On behalf of the commission, you have an announcement to make.
So Laura Housey, she said she'll be leaving the PSC this week. 31st is her last day. It's a gigantic loss for all of us. She's a great person, great communicator, sound, rational mind, and also a very tender heart. And she's been a great mentor to me personally and will be dearly missed.
I agree. Thank you for your service, Laura. We will miss you. We do thank you for the very good work you've done for this agency in your tenure here. So, and if you decide to change your mind, let us know. It's never too late. Never too late. Okay. Commissioner Wilburn,
Thank you.
Commissioner Pinocchio.
All the best.
Yeah, thank you, Laura. And I have an announcement. Next Tuesday, I will be representing the commission out of state, so I will not be here. I would like to be excused.
Commissioner, well, the president will be able to excuse you for that. So do you want to go ahead and excuse, Mr. President, excuse Commissioner Pinocchio for next week's business meeting and scheduling meeting?
Yeah, so moved.
Just so ordered, you're ordered.
So ordered.
Thank you. All right.
Safe travels.
Reminder, any other announcements? All right, seeing none, seeing no further business to come before the commission. For the record, the time is 3:42 p.m. The date is October 28th, 2025. The chair thanks the commissioners for their respectful and intensive deliberations. I think it was good work today, and I thank you very much for that. The meeting is adjourned.